So imagine holding the ability to vaporize a galaxy with a single syllable.
Oh, wow.
Right. But then, choosing to let a group of corrupt politicians nail you to a piece of wood.
Yeah.
Today's source material, which is a 300-year-old text, it claims that this specific scenario isn't a story of defeat. It is the absolute highest display of supreme, unadulterated strength.
That is such a wild thought.
It really is. So welcome to Reformed Thinking. We are doing a deep dive into a text that takes extreme opposites and, well, insists they coexist perfectly in one single person.
Yeah, we have a really fascinating sermon today. It was delivered in August 1736 by Jonathan Edwards.
Yeah.
And it is based on Revelation 5. So the mission of this deep dive into the sources is to unpack a breathtaking paradox, how utterly opposed qualities and excellencies exist perfectly in Jesus Christ.
Right, and to grasp the gravity of this paradox, we have to establish the biblical context of the source text.
Yeah, we do. So the Apostle John is experiencing a vision of heaven. In this vision, God is seated on a throne, holding a scroll in his right hand, and it is sealed with 7 seals.
7 seals, yeah.
And this scroll represents the hidden decrees of God. I mean, it holds future events, the destiny of the world, the final execution of justice, and the completion of history.
So it is locked up tight.
Completely locked up.
And then a strong angel shouts out with a loud voice, asking who is worthy to open the book and break its seals.
And what happens?
Dead silence. I mean, no one in heaven, no one on earth, no one under the earth is able to open it or even look at it.
Wow.
And John just begins to weep much. Think about the emotional weight of that moment. History is stalled. The purposes of God are locked.
Yeah, the redemption of the world is seemingly impossible, because no creature possesses the worthiness to execute the plan.
Right. And John's weeping represents the despair of the entire human race.
Yeah.
I mean, if that scroll stays sealed, evil wins.
Yeah, justice is never meted out.
Yeah.
Creation remains fractured forever.
But then comes the dramatic twist.
Yes, the twist. One of the elders approaches John and tells him not to weep. Why? Because the Lion of the tribe of Judah has prevailed to open the scroll.
So naturally, John turns, right? He is expecting to see a terrifying, roaring beast. I mean, a lion is a devourer. It destroys its enemies.
Yeah, it is the king of the jungle. It represents supreme dominion and dread.
But he doesn't see a lion. He looks, and right in the middle of the throne, he sees a lamb.
A lamb.
And not just a lamb, but a lamb looking as though it had been slain, bearing the marks of deadly wounds.
Which is it is such a shocking image.
It is. We usually think of defeating an enemy by, meeting force with superior force. If they bring a sword, you bring a bigger sword.
That is how the world works.
But it reminds me of martial arts, like Aikido. The strategy is entirely different. You don't block a strike with brute force, you yield.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, you take the opponent's aggressive, destructive momentum, and you use that very momentum to throw them off balance.
That makes a lot of sense.
You defeat them by letting them overextend. The victory comes through an apparent yielding.
That captures the mechanics of this text perfectly. I mean, the lion and the lamb are diverse creatures. One excels in majestic voice and might, while the other excels in meekness and, yielding itself as a sacrifice.
Right.
Yet the text points out that these diverse excellencies wonderfully meet in him. He conquered the enemies of God not by roaring and devouring, but by absorbing the lethal blow.
He yielded to the strike of death.
Yes. And by doing so, he used death's own momentum to break its hold on humanity.
Oh, man. So we have to ask you, the listener, to consider this. What does it mean for you when infinite strength and supreme vulnerability meet in one place?
Yeah.
How does that alter your view of the universe and the one who holds it together? Because Edwards takes this lion and lamb metaphor and applies it to the very nature of God.
He really goes all in on it.
He does. He starts by looking at the divine attributes themselves, specifically the clash between infinite highness and infinite condescension.
Let us break down Christ's highness first. As God, he is the creator. He is the King of kings, Lord of lords, higher than the heavens and the highest angels.
His knowledge has no bound.
None. The text notes that all nations are as a drop in the bucket to him. All kings and princes are as worms of the dust before him.
Wow.
He is entirely self-sufficient. He needs nothing from outside of himself to exist or to be fully satisfied.
But then you contrast that with his condescension. He doesn't just tolerate the lower realms. He actively notices them.
He really does.
He notices the most despised people, the beggars, the poor, the outcasts. He invites little children to come to him. He washes the dirty feet of fishermen.
Which is so completely backward from how we operate.
Right. If we look at human sociology, we see a massive contrast. Usually when human beings gain a little more wealth or status, they distance themselves from others.
Yeah, they move to gated communities.
Exactly. Well, spot on. They fly private to avoid the crowded terminals.
Edwards uses a very vivid, almost abrasive analogy here. He says if one worm is a little exalted above another by having more dust or a bigger dunghill, he thinks highly of himself and expects others to keep their distance.
A bigger dunghill. That is quite the image.
It really paints a picture. Human nature naturally isolates itself when elevated. But Christ, who has infinite status, chooses to become a companion to the lowest.
He exposes himself to shame.
Yes, to shame, to spitting, and eventually a shameful death for people who have absolutely no good deservings.
Wait, hold on, though. If he is this high and holy God, we run into a massive logical hurdle regarding justice and grace.
Okay, what is that?
Well, if he is a strict judge who absolutely will not clear the guilty, how can he simultaneously offer grace to the chief of sinners?
Right, the legal tension.
Yeah, because if a human judge lets a serial killer walk free simply because the judge feels gracious, we don't call that judge loving.
No, we call that judge corrupt. The judge needs to be impeached.
So how does Edwards resolve this without making God look like a corrupt magistrate?
The text explains the specific mechanism of the atonement that resolves this legal tension. The strict justice is satisfied, but not by sweeping the crimes under the rug.
Okay.
The law's demands are met in full. Christ himself stepped into the line of fire. He suffered the immediate fruits of God's wrath against sin in his own soul.
I see.
The liability was transferred from the guilty party to the willing substitute.
So the debt is actually paid, not just ignored.
Precisely.
Right.
Because that strict justice is satisfied completely by his own blood, it opens the floodgates for infinite grace.
Wow.
He can offer the greatest good to the most unworthy person, not by ignoring their guilt, but by absorbing the penalty for it. Justice and grace are not competing variables in a zero-sum game. They are perfectly met in that one historical act.
This raises a serious metaphysical issue, though.
Okay, hit me.
Well, condescension is one thing, but Edwards also talks about humility. Humility requires acknowledging you are lower than someone else.
Right.
So, if you are the supreme God, who do you acknowledge? It seems like a logical contradiction to say God the Father is humble, because there is no one greater for him to be little before.
You are identifying the core mystery of the hypostatic union right there.
The hypostatic union.
Yeah. Humility is a virtue strictly for created beings. God, in his divine essence, cannot be humble in the sense of acknowledging a superior.
Because there isn't one.
Right. Yet in Jesus Christ, we have two distinct natures in one person. He takes on a human nature. He assumes a created form.
Okay, I follow.
This provides the localized medium for him to demonstrate the greatest instance of humility in history. He lives in the family of a carpenter for 30 years. He takes the form of a servant.
He possesses equal honor with God the Father, worshipped by angels, yet has a human heart lowlier than any other.
That is it.
So that structural reality, two natures in one person, explains the clash between majesty and meekness.
It does.
Because we are talking about the God who rides on the heavens. The text says his presence melts hills, earthquakes before him. He rebukes the sea and makes it dry.
His eyes are a flame of fire.
That is staggering majesty. And yet, this is the same man who rode into Jerusalem on a donkey's colt. The man who stood completely silent while a ring of soldiers mocked him.
Think about the restraint required there. To possess the might, to speak the universe out of existence, and to use that mouth to say absolutely nothing while being falsely accused and physically beaten.
It is unfathomable.
That is transcendent meekness. A lion in majesty, a lamb in meekness.
To a modern listener, though, standing silent while people beat you doesn't look like strength. That looks like victimization.
Yeah, that is a common reaction.
How did Edwards convince his audience this was actually a victory? If someone punches you and you just take it, society calls you weak.
Society evaluates strength by the capacity to inflict damage. Edwards evaluates strength by the capacity to exercise absolute self-control for the sake of a higher righteous goal.
Oh, that is a huge distinction.
Right. If Christ had spoken a word and destroyed his captors, he would have preserved his physical body, but he would have failed in his mission to redeem humanity.
He would have lost the actual war.
Yes. His silence was not the silence of powerlessness. It was the silence of sovereign restraint. He was holding back his own infinite might to accomplish the rescue of his enemies. That requires infinitely more strength than lashing out.
This physical demonstration of meekness forces us to confront an even more difficult theological tension.
Which is?
When Jesus is kneeling in the dirt, sweating in the Garden of Gethsemane, he is displaying supreme reverence. He prays with postures of submission. But who is he reverencing if he is supposed to be God?
The incarnational theology here is highly specific, and the text explicitly refutes the Arian heresy.
Arian heresy.
Yeah, Arius, in the early centuries of the Church, taught that the Son was a created being, a highly exalted being, perhaps the first and greatest creation, but still a creature. An undergod, if you will. Edwards uses the lion and lamb paradox to shatter that idea. He argues for ontological equality combined with economic submission.
Break those terms down for us. Ontological versus economic.
So ontological refers to his very being, his essence. In his divine essence, he is exactly equal to the Father. He shares the identical divine nature.
Okay. And economic.
Economic refers to his role in the plan of redemption. He willingly takes on a subordinate role to accomplish salvation. In his human nature, he owes and gives perfect reverence to God. In his divine nature, he is equal to God. These things meet in no other person but Jesus Christ.
But doesn't that just sound like a convenient theological loophole?
How so?
Well, you say he is God, but when he shows weakness or submission, you just say, oh, that is his human nature. It feels like a get-out-of-jail-free card for any contradiction.
I see what you mean. It would be a loophole if the two natures were kept completely isolated from one another, acting like two different people taking turns behind the steering wheel.
Right.
But the text argues for the unity of the single person. The actions of the human nature and the actions of the divine nature are both attributed to the one person, Jesus Christ.
I see.
It is the one person who is both the supreme Lord of the universe and the obedient servant learning through suffering.
Let's apply this to a modern relational example. When we are accused of something, if we are actually innocent, we immediately demand our rights. We get defensive.
Oh, absolutely.
We raise our voices to clear our names. If we suffer unfairly, we lose our patience almost instantly because we feel we deserve better.
We feel entitled to vindication.
Right. Now look at Christ. He was perfectly innocent. He never had a single wrong thought or action. He was deserving of infinite love from God and infinite respect from men.
Yeah.
Yet he endured the most horrific evil, the physical and spiritual agony of the cross, without threatening anyone. He did not demand his rights. He took the suffering patiently, committing himself to the judge.
And his patience under that suffering highlights the tension between supreme dominion and perfect obedience. Christ is Lord of all. By natural right, he is supreme over the universe.
He gives the orders to the cosmos.
Yes. Yet, he submitted to the commands of the Father. He was told to lay down his life, and he did so perfectly.
He decrees the end from the beginning, yet willingly subjects himself to the darkest event in history. We see this acutely in the Garden of Gethsemane, where absolute sovereignty meets perfect resignation.
That scene is so intense.
Here is the sovereign God staring into the terrifying cup of God's wrath.
The physical response of hematidrosis, which is sweating blood, shows the immense psychological and spiritual terror he was facing.
Yeah, that is a real medical condition under extreme stress.
It is. He was not merely afraid of physical death. Countless martyrs have faced physical execution with calm resolve. Christ was staring at the concentrated, holy wrath of God against the sins of the world.
He was about to drink the cup of divine fury.
Yet, facing that, he remains entirely resigned. He says, "Not as I will, but as thou wilt."
So if these two natures coexist perfectly in the abstract realm of eternal theology, how does that materialize in first-century Palestine?
What do you mean?
Well, the metaphysical reality has to take on physical flesh. How do the lion and the lamb show up in the historical timeline?
Oh, I get you. We see the clash immediately in the circumstances of his incarnation. Look at the lamb aspect first. He is born to a poor young woman.
Right.
We know she was poor because of the specific offering she brings for her purification. According to the book of Leviticus, a mother was supposed to bring a lamb for a burnt offering. But if she could not afford a lamb, she was permitted to bring 2 turtle doves.
Oh, wow.
Mary brings the turtle doves. The Supreme Lord of the universe was legally classified as impoverished under his own law.
That is just wow.
Oh.
And he is born in a stable because the inn was occupied by people considered more significant by society. He is laid in a feeding trough.
The cultural stigma of that setting is immense.
It is. He enters the world in utter obscurity, feebleness, and poverty.
But simultaneously, the lion is roaring.
How so?
He is conceived not by human means, but by the Holy Ghost. While he is lying in that dirty manger, the glorious hosts of heaven are splitting the night sky to sing to the shepherds. He was not just born to be poor, he was born specifically to conquer Satan, the roaring lion of hell.
He came to subdue the mighty forces of darkness.
Yes.
The contrast continues throughout his entire earthly ministry. Think about his daily life as the Lamb. He is homeless. He relies on the charity of his followers for his daily food.
Right.
He treats his disciples not as underlings, but as close friends. He washes their feet. He bears the constant reproaches and insults of the religious leaders with staggering patience.
But then you turn the page, and the lion is on full display. He demonstrates absolute dominion over nature.
Like the storm on the sea.
Yes. He is sleeping in a boat during a massive storm, exhibiting the physical exhaustion of a human lamb. Then he wakes up, speaks to the raging sea, and it instantly goes flat.
That is the divine lion.
He walks on the waves, he shows omniscience, knowing the secret, hidden thoughts of the men plotting against him.
The spiritual physics of his interactions with the demonic realm were really fascinating too. When he encounters the man possessed by a legion of devils, those devils tremble.
They do not challenge him to a fight.
Right. They fall down and bug him not to torment them.
The demons recognize his ontological authority instantly. With a single word, he forces a whole legion to abandon their hold and casts them into a herd of swine.
He proves right there that he is stronger than the roaring lion who seeks to devour.
He holds absolute jurisdiction over the spiritual realm.
Now, all these historical events point toward one highly concentrated focal point, the crucifixion. This is where the tension reaches its absolute peak.
The cross is the greatest act in the work of redemption. It is the moment where the lion and the lamb are most vividly displayed at the exact same fraction of a second.
Yeah.
The text offers a series of massive contrasts regarding the cross, beginning with the clash between extreme humiliation and highest glory.
The cross was the lowest point of his earthly life. It was a humiliating, degrading, naked execution reserved for the worst criminals of the Roman Empire.
He was stripped of all reputation and dignity.
Yet this very act of extreme humiliation is the specific reason the hosts of heaven sing, "Worthy is the Lamb." It is his most glorious act. His lowest moment is the foundation of his highest praise.
We also see the simultaneous display of his love to God and his love to enemies.
How does that work?
Well, on the cross, Christ is vindicating the Father's authority. By suffering the penalty of the law, he is proving that God's law is holy and cannot be broken without consequence. He honors the Father more in that moment than any creature ever has in all of history.
But the blood he is shedding to honor the Father is being shed for the very rebels who dishonored the Father.
Yeah.
He's showing infinite love to God and infinite love to God's enemies in the exact same breath.
Which brings us to the visceral reality of defending justice by suffering justice. He stood up for God's justice. He refused to let sin go unpunished. But the way he defended that justice was by becoming the target of its terrible executions. The revenging justice of God spent all its force upon him.
The text mentions the blood turning to water, referencing Psalm 22, where his heart melts like wax.
Yes. He upheld the law by letting the law crush him.
His absolute holiness never shone as brightly as it did in his obedience to go to the cross. It was the greatest act of obedience since the foundation of the world.
Without a doubt.
Yet, he is apprehended in the dark, he is bound as a malefactor, he is subjected to a trial full of lies, he's given the death penalty reserved for the vilest offenders. He who knew no sin was made a curse.
Look at the crowd. They're screaming, "Away with him! Crucify him!" They actually ask for Barabbas, a known murderer, to be released instead of Jesus.
They treat him as if he is completely unworthy to even draw breath on the earth.
Yet, because he willingly subjected himself to that treatment, the angelic decree rings out that he is uniquely worthy of all exaltation, wealth, wisdom, and honor.
The psychological weight of the betrayal adds another layer entirely. He experienced total abandonment from the people he loved most.
Yeah, that had to be crushing.
He was forsaken by the Father, not out of hatred for Christ's person, but out of holy hatred for the sins Christ was bearing.
Right.
His closest friends vanished. The disciples could not even stay awake to pray with him for 1 hour. Peter, the most vocal supporter, denied him with curses.
And the men who were driving the nails into his flesh, he was actively praying for their forgiveness while they were torturing him. He suffered the worst from the hands of men while exercising the highest love toward those same men.
Edwards uses some striking historical analogies to explain the final contrast: being delivered to enemies versus achieving ultimate victory.
Oh, these analogies are brilliant.
Christ was completely handed over to the malice of wicked men and devils. It was their hour and the domain of darkness. Satan bruised his heel, but the cross was actually the weapon that ruined Satan.
The Samson analogy illustrates the mechanics of this victory beautifully.
Oh, tell me about that.
So, Samson lost his eyes, lost his freedom, and was mocked by the Philistines in the temple of Dagon. He lived entirely defeated.
Right.
But by pushing the pillars apart, he brought the roof down on Dagon's temple, destroying more enemies in his death than in his life. Christ, yielding to the curse of the law, was like pushing the pillars apart. He brought the temple of darkness down on the heads of his enemies. By dying, he broke Satan's legal right to accuse sinners.
The Jonah analogy operates on the same logic.
Mm.
The whale swallowed Jonah, thinking it had secured a meal, but Jonah was poisoned to the whale's stomach.
The whale was violently sickened and had to vomit him out on dry land.
The devil thought he had swallowed Christ up in death, but Christ's sinless nature was a deadly poison to the grave. Death could not digest him. He gave Satan a mortal wound from the inside out.
What looked like total defeat, being swallowed by death, was actually the mechanism of complete and total victory. He appeared as a lamb in the jaws of a roaring lion, but in being slain, he, as the Lion of Judah, destroyed the devourer.
In his greatest weakness, he displayed his most glorious strength.
It is incredible.
So does this paradox end after the resurrection? I mean, we have seen the lion and the lamb on earth, but what happens when he ascends? Do we only get the lion now?
Not at all. The paradox continues into his present reality in heaven. Right now, he is exalted at the right hand of God. He's the king of the universe. He holds all authority. That is the lion.
Right.
But the book of Revelation still refers to him as a lamb standing on Mount Zion. Even amidst the absolute authority of his exaltation, he acts as a lamb toward his saints.
He treats them with mildness. He leads them to living fountains of water. He intercedes for them with sympathy because he remembers what physical exhaustion and emotional betrayal feel like.
Yes, he has not forgotten the pain of the human experience.
He still bears the marks of his wounds in heaven. He is not a distant, untouchable monarch who cannot relate to the struggles of his subjects.
But there is a future moment coming where the lion will be terrifyingly visible. The final judgment.
The text paints a dreadful picture for the wicked there.
It does. When he returns in the glory of his Father, the earth will tremble, the hills will melt. Kings, chief captains, the rich, the mighty, they will hide in caves and beg the mountains to fall on them to hide them from the wrath of the Lamb.
That phrase, the wrath of the Lamb, might be the most terrifying combination of words in Scripture.
It really is an intense paradox on its own.
You expect wrath from a lion. A lion is supposed to tear and destroy. But when the gentle, silent, suffering lamb finally displays wrath, it means mercy has been entirely, irreversibly exhausted. The trembling and astonishment of that moment will be beyond human conception.
Contrast that with how he will appear to the saints on that exact same day. He won't be a terror to them. He will be completely clothed in sweetness.
It won't be a day of dread. It is described as a wedding day.
Yes. The believers will be invited as friends and family to inherit the kingdom and reign with him. The lion to the wicked, the lamb to the saints.
So why does this matter for you, listening right now? We are analyzing a 300-year-old sermon about a theological paradox. How does this bump up against your daily life, your anxieties, your view of yourself?
It matters because of who you are looking to for rescue. The text notes that Scripture uses dozens of different metaphors for Christ.
Like what?
A sun, a morning star, a rock, a pearl, a rose, a lily, a tree of life. Why so many? Because no single image, not even the lion and the lamb combined, can fully capture this conjunction of excellencies. There is a fullness in him meant to answer every single specific human need and fear.
Let me ask you directly. Are you afraid he isn't strong enough to save you? Maybe you look at your habits, your past, the absolute mess you have made of your life, and you think the chains are simply too heavy to break.
A lot of people feel that way.
Look at the lion. He is the mighty God. He commands the sea and casts out demons with a single syllable. He has enough might to break whatever is holding you.
Or maybe your fear is entirely different. Are you afraid he won't stoop down to notice someone as messy or unworthy as you?
Do you feel too insignificant for the creator of the universe to care about?
Look at the lamb. Look at the one who stood silent while being spit upon. The one who washed dirty feet. The one who happily shares a meal with outcasts and beggars.
The invitations extended in this text are astonishing. He says, "Ho, everyone that thirsteth, come ye to the waters." And for the person who feels they have absolutely nothing to offer, no good deeds to trade, he says, come, buy wine and milk without money and without price.
Your spiritual poverty is not a barrier, it is a strict prerequisite for entry.
He stands at the door and knocks. Think about the restraint in that image. The sovereign God of the universe doesn't send a celestial SWAT team to kick your door down and arrest you as a rebel.
No, he stands on your porch, he knocks, he waits for you to open.
What more could you possibly want? A savior who is high enough to be God, with all the authority of the universe, but low enough to be your brother.
Someone who knows exactly what it feels like to be betrayed by friends, to be exhausted to the bone, to be in excruciating physical agony.
This leads to the final theological triumph of the text, the promise of intimate friendship with the divine. Christ is not exalted just to sit far away and be admired from a distance.
Right, the whole point of the incarnation and redemption is union. He is the head, and believers are the members of his body.
His exaltation doesn't separate him from his people. It brings his people up to share in it. He promises to grant them to sit with him on his throne.
Because he took on human nature, we have a bridge to God. We have a brother who shares our exact biological makeup. But because he is a divine person, being united to him brings us into the intimate family and society of the Trinity itself.
We partake in our finite measure of the Father's infinite love for the Son. We are brought into the inner household of God.
Because Christ is human, we have access to him. Because he is divine, that access brings us into the very heart of the Creator.
Let's do a quick recap of the sheer magnitude of what we just covered. We started with John weeping over a sealed scroll in heaven, waiting for a terrifying beast to break the silence, and seeing a wounded lamb instead.
Yeah, quite the shock.
We looked at a being who holds the entire cosmos together, yet allows his own physical hands to be nailed to wood. We traced this paradox from a duty stable with a poverty offering of turtle doves, through a life of calming storms and washing feet, to the horrors of the cross where he suffered the law's absolute justice to open the floodgates of infinite grace.
We saw him sapping Satan's kingdom from the inside out, like poison to a whale.
And we looked ahead to a final day where he will be the terrifying wrath to the wicked and the sweet bridegroom to his friends. So here's a final thought to mull over as you go about your day. Leave them with something good. We live in a culture that worships alpha personalities, loud voices, and the ruthless accumulation of leverage. We are told that strength means never backing down and never showing a vulnerability.
Oh, constantly.
But if the sovereign God of the universe executed his greatest victory not through brute force, but through the ultimate vulnerability of a slain lamb, by absorbing the blow rather than throwing the punch, how does that completely upend our modern definitions of strength, leadership, and success?
It changes everything.
If you want true authority, must you always carry the marks of a lamb? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the source material. That quiet, wounded physician was the undisputed champion all along.